What's up, folks? My name is C.T.Jamison, and I live in Newark, Delaware. Now, if you saw my most recent video on Instagram, you know that I recently took some time to go to Dover with the Delaware Sierra Club and do some lobbying. I want to take a couple minutes to actually talk about what we were doing down there and why I think it's important. Before I get into it, what you need to know is that I am currently a political science student at Penn State University, and my goal with that is to eventually run for office here in the great state of Delaware. So while I'm on my summer break, other than taking some summer classes, I'm also looking to find ways to work within the system to gain experience, to meet people, and find out how everything works firsthand. Now, generally, when we think about lobbying, we think about large corporate lobbyists that go to our government and convince them to do objectively terrible things like this. But there are also much smaller lobbyists like the Delaware Sierra Club, like the Sierra Club overall, and the Nature Conservancy, who was also there with us lobbying and helping us to get a couple things passed in the state of Delaware that could be good for the state and good for the people. And when I saw the opportunity to go down in Dover to do some lobbying with the Sierra Club, I saw this as an opportunity to not only work in the system and gain some real world experience, but also to work with people that I would already align with if I was already in office. Now, recently, the things that I've done with the Sierra Club have focused around the data center industry and trying to enact guardrails and regulations for the industry before they start building in the state of Delaware. We have actually succeeded in having some of the regulations that we were pushing for passed at the county level. But while we were in Dover, there were a number of bills that were being proposed to our legislators to try to get them passed at the state level to help out with this industry before it actually starts to pop up. Now, I think we all know that it's pretty important that we have guardrails for this industry because we have people like this guy who are trying to build this thing in Utah, the largest data center ever built, that is twice the size of Manhattan and is having a lot of pushback by the people in Utah. And we also see headlines like these where data centers are using too much water, too much electricity, and it's affecting our bills, and it's affecting people's ability to have clean drinking water if they have wells. Now in southern Delaware, we have a lot of aquifers, and we have well water, so if we were to have a data center put in down there and they drain the aquifer, we would have an issue with having a lack of water for the people that live there right now. So obviously this is really important, and I would be on the side of all of these. The last part would be that this guy is also making a lot of backroom deals in Utah, and one of the bills that we were pushing for down in Dover was a non-disclosure act, a bill that bans non-disclosures so that people like him can't make backroom deals with legislators that actually screw the people that live there and only benefit the people that are making the deals. So after all that, I think you're probably on board with me in saying that this guy is probably the worst thing that's ever come out of the show Shark Tank, and if he could do us all a favor, he can take a long walk off of a very short pier, sir. But don't worry, I'll be on your show shortly to pitch you an idea for a new life vest that is AI-powered and can choose whether it wants to save you or not. But all jokes aside, we're actually not here to talk about data centers today. We are here to talk about the last bill that we were down in Dover pushing for our legislators to pass, which looks like it actually might pass. That bill is Senate Bill 9. Now, Senate Bill 9 is the non-tidal wetlands protection bill. Now, this is a very important bill for the state of Delaware, for one, because Delaware has about 20% of land that is deemed as non-tidal wetlands. We are also the only state in the Northeast area that doesn't have a wetlands protection bill. And this bill has the distinction of being a very rare bill in Congress, in state legislature, in the sense that it has buy-in by every party that it affects. It is bipartisan. It is sponsored by some of our Republican representatives. It has buy-in by the farmers, by the builders, and by Denarac. The reason why is because the farmers want to have a nice, easy process to go through if they have any wetlands pop up on their farms. And what this does is it separates the regular wetlands from the extraordinary wetlands. And says that if you just have a wetland pop up on your farm that was already going to be for farming, you would not actually have to deal with this. So it gives a nice guardrail for them to follow. It also changes the amount of time it takes to get a permit. We know that Denarac can be a little bit slow, and a lot of people in building were having a hard time with getting permitting, and it was taking years to get. This sets it at 120 days. So it's good for the builders because it's a lot faster of a process, but it also allows us to protect the wetlands that need to be protected, whether they're flood zones, whether there's endangered species, anything that makes them extraordinary and not just regular wetlands where some water accumulated where it wasn't once before. That is a very good distinction for the state of Delaware because we're a very low-lying state, which means that a wetland can pop up almost overnight, but it's not an extraordinary wetland, it's just a wet space. So it looks like this is actually going to be passed. Now, if this is important to you, it is also still a good time to contact your representative and push for them to pass it. It looked like the last hurdle should be going through this week, which was the funding for the bill. Of the bills that we were down there to talk about, this is the only one that needed special funding because we know that if you are starting to do any regulations for anything, you need people, you need manpower, you need money. Now, this is important to me because I grew up as a kid that played in the woods, right? I grew up as a kid that played in our green spaces. And that turned into fishing, and it turned into hunting, and it turned into backpacking and hiking and mountain climbing and surfing. I think I said that one already. But it turned into being a lifelong outdoorsman, and a lot of you probably are as well. Now, the past decade, as I told you before, I've spent a lot of time in our state parks playing disc golf. So this is just continuing as I get older and older, that I just have a lot of respect for our green spaces. So we need to make sure that if we have extraordinary green spaces that need to be saved, that we should be protecting them. Now, throughout this process of working with the Sierra Club, I've also been paying attention to what's been going on in the federal government with the efforts to defund the U.S. Forestry Service. All right, so what is actually happening? Now, this is straight from the Save USFS website, which is right here. Headquarters being ripped out of D.C. The Forest Service headquarters is being moved, uprooted, and shipped to Salt Lake City. That is the heart of the anti-public lands movement. Utah politicians have spent millions of dollars suing the government to take federal forests away from you. All 10 regional offices are being shuttered. Every regional office governing the agency since 1907 is being closed. The career professionals who spent their lives building expertise to protect your forests, gone. 57 research stations destroyed. Labs across 31 states housing decades of irreplaceable forest science are being shut down. Once this research infrastructure is gone, it cannot be rebuilt. Wildfire season is now. Now, if you've been watching the news, you know that wildfires are already starting to pop up, and we've already had a pretty hot year. But 1.62 million acres as of April have already burned in 2026. That is 231% above the 10-year average. This dismantling is happening as forecasters warn of exceptionally high fire risk across the Southeast and the West this year. Political appointees are taking over. 15 political appointees will replace the entire regional leadership structure, each one embedded with the state's government and the industry lobbyists who want to log, mine, and drill your public lands. We know how this ends. When Trump moved BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, in his first term, 87% of the staff left rather than relocate. Many of them couldn't relocate. It just wasn't feasible for them. That agency never recovered. This is the same playbook, 20 times the scale. Now, if you've ever been to a national park, to a state park, to any of our green spaces in the country, if you've ever done any ecotourism, if you've gone fishing, hunting, hiking, backpacking, surfing, any of this all requires support from the government. That stuff doesn't run for free. It doesn't stay nice for free. And the amenities that you get when you go to them are not free. That requires us to support those things. I personally love ecotourism. I've done it in many countries, and I've also done it in many places of the United States. There are also many national parks that I haven't been to yet that I would love to go see, but they might not be there for us. Now, many companies have actually reached out and spoken out. As of April 8th, it was 70 companies. We're going to put a couple of them, or a bunch of them right here. We're going to put many of them right here, and great for them. These are companies that we should be supporting. But many of them have not. There are a number that are being quiet or refusing to speak out. Now, here's a couple of them right here, And the one that really stands out to me out of these is Subaru. Now, I don't know what you drive, but I drive an Outback. And Subaru is the most outdoors aligned company in the car manufacturing area. Now, many of you may be thinking, hey, that should be Jeep, because the Jeep Wrangler is obviously an outdoors vehicle, but Stellantis as a whole does not build themselves as an outdoor company. Subaru does. And the fact that Subaru is being quiet when they're trying to defund the U.S. Forestry Service makes me a little bit sick to my stomach as to how much money I've spent with them. Now, the next few should be very familiar to anybody that is an outdoorsman. Now, Save USFS has reached out to these companies, and they are actually refusing to speak out, which is even worse than just being quiet. That's just saying that you're going to turn your back on the entire industry that you built your business on. Now, these should be pretty familiar. Yeti being something that almost all of us have. Many of us have a cooler, and Yeti is one of the higher end coolers that everyone wants to have. I know that there are a few companies that compete with Yeti, and next time I go to buy a cooler, I'm definitely going to be looking at one of those companies instead of Yeti. As for Sitka, if you're into hunting, you know that this is one of the higher end hunting jacket and clothing companies in the United States. It's generally, I go to the store if I'm looking for a new hunting jacket, and they're $400, $500, $600. They're premium priced, premium products, but there are companies you can go to get a quality product that isn't Sitka, that isn't turning their back on hunters. Now, many people that I know have an issue with hunters. I've always been raised to know that hunters are conservationists. I look at myself as a conservationist when I am hunting. As the human population grows, the area for the animals gets smaller, and you do have to cull the population to make sure that they're not coming down with sickness and collapsing. So I look at that as conservation. It's also a great way to get clean food for you and your family. And I know that next time I'm looking for a new hunting jacket, Sitka probably will not be on my list anymore. The last one I want to talk about here is Arc'teryx. I've climbed some mountains, and I plan to climb some more mountains. Arc'teryx is one of the most well-known mountaineering companies for sleeping bags, for jackets, for any type of cold weather gear. They make great products, but again, there are other companies that are not turning their backs on their consumer base and actually speaking up. I find this to be really interesting because if it wasn't for parklands, for green spaces, for conservation, these companies wouldn't have a business to work with. All right, so what can we do? We need to make our voices heard now more than ever. Now, there are many things going on, and I get it. If you're paying attention to current events, it's really hard to find out what to focus on. This is one of those things that I find to be very important for me, and you might find it to be very important for you, because if we ruin our natural resources and our green spaces, then what are we left with? We're left with concrete in cities and smog and unhealthy places to live and nowhere to go for respite. So we need to reach out to our representatives in Congress and in the House of Representatives and let them know, hey, we need to keep funding the U.S. Forestry Service. We need to fund our green spaces. And we also need to realize that ecotourism is a big part of the United States. We have many beautiful national parks and monuments and places to go visit, and people from all over the world want to come here to see those things, just like we want to go to their country and see their national parks and their monuments as well. I know it might be a little bit of an odd time for people of other countries to actually come here, but at some point in time, we will be rid of the current administration, and people might actually start coming to our tourism might start to be able to pick up again, just like it was before. But that's not going to happen if we stay quiet. So if you're an outdoorsman or woman, if you just like fresh spaces, if you've ever been camping, if you've ever been backpacking, if you've ever gone hunting or fishing, if you've ever just looked at an area full of trees and said, that is really beautiful, I'd like to keep it that way. Or if you're just against logging it and mining it for oil and cutting it down to put in giant data centers, we should reach out to our representatives and try to voice our support for our natural spaces. Thank you.